Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. My name is Brandon, and welcome to this Free State Colorado interview. Today, I'm joined by Natalie Menten, Liberty leader and former RTD board member. Well, Natalie, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
Having a wonderful day. Glad to be here.
Great. Well, Natalie, I know you have some important and timely news on what the RTD board is trying to do to Colorado taxpayers. So let's jump in.
Yeah, we're going to jump in and talk about this real quick. This is something that's coming up pretty quick on the radar because it's that time of year where local governments are deciding what they are going to put on the ballot. There's a deadline where they have to reserve a spot with county election departments by end of July, saying we reserve spots. So these local governments start discussing this about right now. RTD is the Regional Transportation District, is more than likely going to be running a ballot on the November election along with all the rest. So it would be near the end of the ballot. And the proposal RTD is putting forward right now is to eliminate our TABOR or Taxpayers Bill of Rights refunds or rebates. So just a little background on the RTD. Because it's off most people's radar, frankly, there's a lot of people out in the world that do not use public transit. It's just a bus on the road. Regional Transportation District, though, is the third to fourth largest government in Colorado. You can argue back and forth, but basically they are a big government with a budget over $1 billion, and that rivals our Colorado Department of Transportation. Now, so just take a note of that with CDOT, they're serving our entire state. The Regional Transportation District is really serving a denser area here within the Denver metropolitan area. So RTD doesn't serve rural Colorado or other areas as other transportation districts. So RTDs are big, they take in a lot of money. And most people actually would not realize what they are paying into the system. And but if you look at the end of your receipt, when you go to the grocery store, when you go to buy pretty much any goods, you're going to see on there RTD tax, if they split it out, one way or the other, paying it in the district of a full 1%. That 1% is what largely funds how service is operated with the RTD. The fares themselves that people pay when they get on the bus or the train are a very small piece of that cost for the service. So sales tax is the largest revenue piece. 15 elected RTD board directors. Really quick to note, there are actually very few elected transportation boards in the United States. Last I heard, Colorado or RTD Denver, we're talking about here, is one of three within the United States that's elected. So it's actually a very valuable thing in that we get that representation. And if you recall, we've had a few brief conversations about how Jared Polis, governor of Colorado, wants to take away some of those elected positions and put them in with appointed positions. We'll talk about that a little more later. Let's skip ahead because we're hoping to keep this fast. Right now, RTD, when you looked at to 1% tax, well, 0.6%, 6/10 of that sales tax goes to the base system, and 4/10 of that is going to what's called the fast track system, sold to voters. You're going to get this full train system. Short end of that story. It's not all yet been built out, so we're now years past when it was supposed to be done, and projected not to be done until 2050. And that's largely a bunch of factors, but broken promises, expectations not met, etc. Well, back to the breakout of the sales tax. The piece for that 6/10 of the percent, there's a bond currently, there's debt being paid on that part of the system, the RTD system. The agreement was when those bonds are being paid, taxpayers agreed to give up their TABOR refunds, meaning the RTD had no cap on the revenue it could take in. Therefore, we never saw a TABOR refund. A reminder on TABOR limits, it gives a generous amount of growth to government. It allows inflation plus local growth in this case. So they get to grow, but after that, we're supposed to get our money back. Well, during this period, while the debt was being paid to the bankers, we gave up our right to those TABOR refunds. Now the debt's going to be paid off at the end of this year, November 2024. Once that occurs, we, the taxpayers of this district, will again have government revenue limits on the Regional Transportation District, as we should. So what RTD wants to do is say to the voters in November, will you waive those TABOR limits on revenue forever? They don't comply with the 4-year thing that's in TABOR. They're wanting to go for a permanent removal. So that's the slide. Basically, they want to eliminate all these future TABOR rebates to the district taxpayers. Now, let's take a look at what has RTD capped over years, because what they're going to try to claim is that this is not a tax increase. Okay, so let's look at what have you capped. If you're saying the end of November, the end of this year, taxpayers are going to get that rebate back, what kind of money are we looking at? Well, here's the best slide we've got, because RTD want to kind of shy down on this and not share the impact of this. RTD is capped close to, it's got to be actually over now, $647 million of our money in TABOR rebates over the last 12 years. Now, we have seen a typical cycle in that last 12 years. You're going to see a recession period that we had in the 2009, 2010, 11, that period where times were a little bit hard. You've seen our boom cycle within this. So if we're looking at just basically over a little over 1 decade, $647 million, and RTD wants to get rid of TABOR, our TABOR rebates, they want to keep them forever, then we know it's going to be a tax increase. They're going to be keeping a hefty amount of our money. And they, again, they want to shy away from that discussion, really, because they're going to want to craft ballot language that, per their public interaction, the public persuasion team that they hired has already tested and crafted ballot language that's not going to give this information to the taxpayers. So it's important. This slide is, most people are going, oh my God, it's financial graph. I don't want to look at what are all those numbers on there. To sum it up, they've been keeping a bunch of our TABOR rebates. And now the time is over. They're supposed to return it, and they want to keep them forever. I'm going to pause. Do you have, I've been going quick. I know. Do you have anything you want me to keep going? What do you want to do here, Brandon?
Just real quick, Natalie, it's just mind-boggling the hundreds of millions of dollars that RTD has collected over the years, and to think nearly $650 million that would be given back to the taxpayers. I mean, that's such a huge boon to the economy, especially as things have increased. Cost of living has increased in Denver and in the metro area in particular, but all of Colorado over that time period. To give that money back or to allow the taxpayers to keep the money that they actually earn and not have to increase the cost of their groceries or their sales tax for other types of items. I mean, it's criminal that they've kept so much of our money that should be coming back to us. I mean, that's really my 2 cents there, is that people deserve to keep their money in their pockets, and they're collecting more and more every year. I'm glad you got on this slide here, because you can see more and more every year. RTD is getting more and more money. And look at what the views of RTD have declined over the last 17 years. So, the favorability has continued to decline, even though they're getting more and more money. So where's this money going? Where are they spending it on? And it doesn't seem like they're fulfilling their promises. That's kind of my 2 cents there, Natalie. But keep going. You're doing great.
Well, what should be the big picture for a lot of people is they view a period of, let's say, 2007 to 2024, back when a lot of those promises were made, was in that 2007, 2005 actual era when fast tracks went. People don't remember now what transportation was like back then. Back then, the player in the game for public transit was one, RTD, but if you remember, we had taxis too. We had those. I mean, when's the last time you really, how much do you see taxis anymore?
True, true.
Okay. Because in 2013, 2014, this was right after I got on the RTD board. And I served full 8 years, so beginning of my term. Right about that time, right when the fast tracks was opening, is also when transportation network companies evolved and came out. And now it's the most common thing. I mean, that's what somebody's going to think about. If they need a quick trip somewhere, they're thinking about Uber or Lyft. That's what's called the transportation network companies. We called it TNCs. And in other parts of the world, it's actually been around for a long time. They call them jitneys, Jitney. And it was basically somebody just going around and giving people rides. Now here, with our government regulations, it's not so quick as, oh, I'm going to jump in the car and make a few bucks and take somebody over the, wherever. But anyway, back to RTD. RTD had this system. They had almost like a monopoly is, I think, too strong of a word, but let's just say they had a market captured. All right. No longer the case. Now I'm talking to somebody, tell them to go to Liberty on the Rocks tomorrow night. And so, well, maybe is it house parking? Maybe I take Lyft. I said, don't worry about it. They got plenty of parking, but isn't that interesting that the first person thinks about when they have their own vehicle? I want a quick, easy trip. I'm going to call a TNC. I'm not going to certainly take RTD because I'll have 1 or 2 hours more in transit time. So when you look at what is the view of RTD as it's evolved over a 12-year period, it's because the need. I mean, why would you do that? Why would you blow 2 hours of your time during the day? Why would you go into conditions where you're getting on a train with people who have, let's say, less than polite behavior? I won't go on that word because we could go on. So anyway, the public perception here has changed. RTD is going to have a public hearing on this ballot issue. That's the very first thing we want to mention here is we can go into history and everything, but we need people to stand up. It is quite uncommon to get people to speak at RTD board meetings, unless it's something about complaint about service. That would be the typical public comment you would get at RTD. But as to budget matters, TABOR, protecting taxpayers, if there are several, maybe 20 people that would show up for this meeting or even attend virtually, which you can do for public comment, that would actually have a really good impact. And that's this next Tuesday. They've already voted once on this. So this is the shot before it goes to the ballot. What are we talking about at public comment? That's what you want to know, right? Trying to send people down to RTD. Speak up. Be those, people that are, their volume is magnified because RTD is really not used to hearing public comment in this regard. So what we are talking about is, one, having an honest discussion in the ballot language. They have used a polling company. They have tested a ballot language because they get it crafted. They're the only ones that are responsible for crafting this message. I'm pointing here to the screen. Let's talk about that for a minute. What RTD wants to say on the ballot, that they've already voted on once, they're going to approve to go on the paper ballot we get for November, is what it says: without increasing and imposing, any new tax or increasing any tax rate, shall the regional transportation districts authorization to collect, retain, spend all revenue it receives from all sources, which was, including sales tax revenues, grant revenues, other monies lawfully received by RTD, and then going into all of this stuff. We want to concentrate on the very first part where it says without imposing any new tax or increasing any tax rate. Taxpayers' Bill of Rights says a tax increase question shall start with capital letters, shall taxes be increased. RTD is trying to say they haven't increased any or made any new tax. They're not increasing any tax rate, which that is arguably false. But they're not starting it out like TABOR states. That's the first message when people show up for a public comment. Say, if this is not a tax increase, why are you even having to put it on the ballot? I mean, and we can go into a little more, but I don't want to take up too much time with our goal of a short video. That's the first thing to say to RTD. If we're going to have a honest conversation, especially based on your history of saying you're going to have ridership that does this, revenue, this system built, and here it's not even built yet all the way. Don't have another ballot issue. You're going to start off with, your dream of making it a smooth issue that pulls really well because it doesn't explain the real impact to taxpayers. The board of directors wants to keep people's money instead of letting them keep their TABOR rebates in their pocket. Important to go on real quick. What maybe somebody wants to spend on their TABOR rebate for RTD? Let's just say they got the money back. Well, let's just say they want to actually go to the goal of it, right? Transit. All right, maybe that person wants to, one, use Uber or Lyft like we talked about. Maybe they want to put gas in their work truck to put food on their table, because like doing a work job like roofing or plumbing or something actually doesn't work very well with RTD transit when you go to put your toolbox on the bus and go to the work site with your 8 feet of pipe length, Maybe somebody wants to put an electric charging station in their home garage. All of those options will probably provide them much better transit options than the regional transportation district. So keep the money in people's pockets. This should not be going back into RTD, which frankly is a black hole. Empty buses running around versus actually moving people, which right now that's people choosing their own transportation, not the RTD. There's some people, there's rare people where it works. They live right next to it, they work right next to it. That's it. That's generally not the case. So I know I don't live like that. I don't think you do either. I don't even think you're, but anyway. So they describe it here. I included this slide because I think it's important to note. In the summary of this board item, the summary is what I captured here in this top paragraph. They actually put in here and do the right thing by saying the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, and they spell it out. The problem is they don't put that in the ballot language. There's nothing that stops them from putting it in the ballot language. Why don't they put in the ballot language what they've got in the ballot issue summary that only the board will read? Because they don't want to use those words. They would call those trigger words. There would be some kind of a word. They would not want the word TABOR, Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. They want to say Article 10, Section 20 in the ballot language. So push them. 1, it is a tax increase. 2, we want something like in the ballot question, shall they be at RTD be allowed to retain and spend from monies that would otherwise be refunded under the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights? So start the ballot question with 1, it's a tax increase. End it with, here's your impact. Normally you would have gotten this, but now you're going to let the district keep it and use those words. Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, TABOR. So those are the public comment things. I hope that's simple for people to just walk in, feel confident on their messaging and not have to get back into dollars and you're going to keep this and will be this amount, blah, blah, blah. Let's just start with a ballot question that actually describes what this impact is to taxpayers, because that 63% or whatever they've polled favorable with their vague ballot language, that's just not acceptable to not have a real conversation. And let me just go into one thing real quick, and then you and I can go back. I just need to share this slide. I think it's really important. I was on the board of directors through a few general managers at RTD. I think if you ask the actual person on the street, what's the general manager of RTD, the full-time, like day-to-day, they're, 40 hours a week. I'm sure it's more than 40 hours a week, but what do they get paid? The RTD general manager is getting paid, you can see a 6-figure salary there through bonuses and the cost of living increases, a pretty healthy amount of money, nearing what the president of the United States makes. Now, obviously, I voted no on every single general manager contract during the time I was there. I also say that, they tried to keep a lot of this kind of underground. And I remember almost getting censured. I told you earlier before we started recording. They almost censured me because I put out what we were going to approve for the general manager's contract to the media before it was approved, because they wanted to brush it aside. They didn't want to talk to anybody. And they threatened like censure. At least one board director was wanting to put a motion forward. And I was begging them. No, I mean, I really was in my head, like I did get down to school. Please. I was like, please do it. I would love it. Love it. I mean, the media and I had a very good relationship. This would not have ended well for them. So I was really disappointed when they didn't. With all of that, anybody, this isn't the best slide, sorry about that. Anybody who can't make the meeting, send in your emails. You can do it all at once at this really hard to read. It's rtd-boardoffice@rtd-denver.com. Sorry, I didn't space that very well. Hopefully they can decipher it. Send in your comments. Let the board know you're watching. It's not going to be a slam dunk. This is 3rd to 4th largest government in Colorado. Once you give up your TABOR refund, we can't petition back. It's one of those ones we talked about where you can't, when you lose it, you lose it. this is one of the ones. We would not be able to petition to get that back.
Wow.
That is, yeah. So, very important decision here.
So Natalie, where is the meeting at?
That is back on, I thought I put it, oh, right there, that one.
Okay, perfect. Just to reiterate,
Yes,
uh,
right there.
so Tuesday, June 25th, 5:30 p.m. That's the RTD building, 1660 Blake Street, Denver. So downtown Denver. People show up there at the meeting. That's really the call to action here. Very limited time to get this information out there. Please share this to everybody out there. And really, at freestatecolorado.com, if you find the post here, I'll put Natalie's language in there and some talking points like we discussed, as well as all these slides so you can go through and kind of be an informed person who shows up. Natalie, is there an opportunity to get in there by Zoom or anything like that, or remote testimony or anything?
There is virtual testimony. I should add a slide. Go into just Google RTD Denver. It will take you to the page. There's the board of directors page at the bottom or under About Us. And then go to the board meeting packet and it will have the virtual testimony instructions. And I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but how much is this impact? We talked about 675 million, for 12 years for all taxpayers. At one point there, I read the average we're paying into RTD is 350 a year, $350 a year. If you think about it again, for your own transit needs, how much does $350 buy you? How many months of gas does that buy you? How many Lyft rides does that buy you? You know, we're saying they still get to grow with TABOR, but we should get our refunds back. So yeah, RTD's building is right off the 16th Street Mall. For anybody who really wants to see how the system operates, take the train down, get on the 16th Street Mall and enjoy the long trip. Especially if you take the R line, the Aurora line, which is, you could watch like a movie, I think. I'm going to test that one day. I did it years ago. It was slow enough then. Now they're doing repairs and it's even slower. I bet I could maybe watch a movie and a half, just taking the train trip from the south side to the north. Anyway, I'm going into performance there, which we're not supposed to be talking about. Stop.
Well, no, Natalie, really appreciate you getting this information out. Thank you for putting these slides together on such short notice. And let's hope that people show up. I'll put the link, of course, at freestatecolorado.com for the remote testimony as well and all the information. But really, two of the big things people should be asking for is accurate, transparent, informative ballot language that is not trying to skirt around the issue that they are taking our money that would come back to us under the Taxpayers Bill of Rights. That's really key, I think, for me. Any other final parting thoughts, Natalie?
Uh, no, I think that's it. We're going to have a conversation, many RTD conversations over the next year. So I'll just leave it at that. Hopefully everybody watches this and can show up virtually or in person, and speak up.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. Look forward to future conversations and best wishes. Good luck, and let's hope people use their voices, stand up, and speak out.
Yes. Look forward to
All right.
seeing people at the hearing one way or another.
Perfect. Take care, Natalie.
Thank you.